Hey there, sorry about that. Back again. Hopefully, you were able to flip over and check out what's going on. Just trying to work our way through this. Good to hear from you as well. Home show this weekend from Hamilton. We got Carol King. Good to see you as well. Yes, indeed. You will see me at the home show on Sunday this weekend in Toronto at the Convention Center. On Saturday, I will be in Guelph actually with an event that's happening at a winery there, and it's a pause for a cause. We're actually going to be doing lots of that as well. For those that are just kind of wondering, what are some things that we can be doing? Let's go through that list. I honestly would normally like to share my screen and help you out with that, but because technically this is being a little bit weird today, I'm going to try my best not to do that and just to be here to help you. So for your lawn this time of year, because we have warm soil temperatures, we can overseed and top dress. Your lawn as well, because the soil temperatures continue to be warm. If by chance you do or have seen any June or Japanese beetles, there's a potential that you can have grubs. If you want to check out if you do have grubs, the best thing for you to do is to go and strip out a little area of your lawn. Just take a 1x1 strip, dig down. If you see a white fleshy insect with a brown head, if you got more than 4 in an area, you have grubs. Of course, Grub B Gon is one control that I recommend. You can also use nematodes, weeds. You can hand remove still dandelions at this time of year, or use Weed B Gon to control some of the broadleaf weeds like dandelion or plantain. As well, what you want to do is coming up on Thanksgiving weekend, the ideal time to apply a fall fertilizer. It was dry up until just this last few days, so your lawn maybe has been struggling. But if we do these few steps, you're going to find out that your lawn will actually become really good over time as well. You just got Carol King. So some of the other questions that I wanted to show you as well. I had one question from a viewer that was asking me about lilacs and established lilacs, where to start when it comes to pruning a lilac. And often we find with Victorian homes, we have that old traditional common lilac. That's what's called the common lilac. That there generally will have a lot of dead wood in the center. So in terms of pruning, we want to avoid pruning right now, unless the only thing that we would prune is any dead wood that we see within the plant itself, or any branches that we think may get damaged by heavy, wet snow early on in the season or freezing rain. In the spring, we'll wait for that guy to bloom, and then what we'll do is we'll prune it back by about a third, but also at the same time, we would remove some of the centers of that plant, any inward growing branches, and kind of thin out the center of that lilac so that we can get more light into the lilac. Often when people prune, they just lop the top, like they almost just take the shears and go right across the top. When you do that, what'll happen is you're going to find that you're going to start to really make that such a dense shrub, and making it such a dense shrub, it's not going to actually be able to have any light in the center, and that will impede it overall. So that's for the common lilac. I had another question about a Christmas cactus, and that question about a Christmas cactus was that it wasn't blooming. So Christmas cactus, the reason why they're called Christmas cactus, it's actually a type of forest cactus, is they bloom at Christmas. The reason why they bloom at Christmas is all due to the shortness of daylight hours. So as we know that each and every day, right now, our daylight is actually shrinking by about 2 to 3 minutes per day. As the daylight gets shorter and shorter and shorter, the days are always 24 hours, but as we don't see as much light, that will trigger that Christmas cactus in bloom. So the first thing that's really important is to put it in a room that you don't turn lights on. So it's in a room with a window that it gets natural light, but you don't turn lights on. Secondly, it does like a little bit of a cooler evening temperature. So if that room perhaps is just a little bit cooler at night, that's an ideal area. I often like to put my Christmas cacti outside at this time of year and keeping an eye when frost would potentially come. And then when frost starts to arrive, that's where I'll bring it in and put it in that room, because outdoors we'll get a little warm day, cool night, and that'll set them into bloom very, very easy. Got a question today as well, and this is from Tracy Barber. Hi, Tracy. How are you doing today? How often should you water an aloe vera? So first thing is, I'm glad that you asked the watering question, because I was just mentioning as our days are getting shorter in terms of the amount of light that we're seeing, plants that we grow indoors are actually requiring less water, because with less light, they don't need as much water. So this is the time on all our plants, we want to cut back on our watering and water only with dry. So in aloe vera, depending upon pot side, that guy there will really need watering for the months of October all the way through to March, maybe once to twice a month, probably more likely once a month. When we start to get the daylight a little bit longer, later on in March, so April, May, June, July, August, September, that's when we'd be watering probably once a week or once every other week. But we allow it to dry in between. That plant there would love to have drier conditions that are there. We got my good friend Bill Kennedy. Bill from Utterly Smooth. Good evening. Are you planning any events in Niagara on the lake this fall? No, I am not planning on any events, or I'm not scheduled for any events on Niagara on the lake this fall. I will be probably most likely going to Niagara on the lake this fall. I love Vintage Hotels does a Sip and Savor event. The Sip and Savor event is one that they host in their garden at Pillar and Post, right across the street from Pillar and Post. A beautiful space. That Sipper and Savor, what's really great is they'll actually have 5 wineries that come there in the garden. So, and they'll pair them with some food from different restaurants. So you're in one space right across from the Pillar and Post. You're able to taste a bunch of different wines and have some food sampling. A great event and a huge, highly recommend as well. So we got my good friend T-Bone in the marsh there. Any cold weather in the forecast for October, so the carrots get cooler before storage. T-Bone, of course, is a marsh farmer, and we call them marsh muckers here in Bradford. If you're wondering what the heck am I talking about, the Holland Marsh is that black soil when you're driving down the 400. When you go down the 400 just north of Highway 9, you see all this wonderful black soil on each side. That's the marsh, and that's marsh muck. Basically, the marsh is just decaying wood matter. That was actually a swamp at one period of time, drained and with a really rich soil. The question is, are we going to be seeing any cooler weather? Right now, if we look at the temperatures in the prairies, I think next week we're going to get into some warmer air. This week we'll have temperatures. Today was fairly humid. We'll have a few days of cooler weather, but right now it looks like the first week to 2 weeks of October will be warm. So we're going to have to wait a little bit of time as well. We got another question this evening as well from Heba. Hello, I'm moving my gardenia indoor soon. Any tips so it doesn't get any shock from moving? Thanks so much. So anytime that we move a plant from outdoors indoors, we're going to get leaf drop. And the reason why we're going to get leaf drop is it's going to be adjusting itself from the outdoor light to the indoor light and the indoor conditions. We can move it in for a day and then move it back out. And so we can adjust it slowly, or we can just move it in, allow it to go through its leaf drop. When it goes through its leaf drop, don't react by going and giving it more water, because then what we'll do is we'll drown it out. So we allow it to dry in between waterings with gardenia. Gardenia likes high humidity. So important for gardenia for high humidity. So if it's in a room with a humidifier or you're misting 2 to 3 times per week, super important for it, but allow it to be dry before you bring it, allow it to dry out in between waterings indoors. Mist, put it in a bright room, west or south facing, but not directly in front of the window. You can, if you want not to see as much leaf drop, you can bring it in for a day, put it back outdoors for a day, bring it in, but that's a lot of work. I'd rather you just bring it in. By the way, as well, when you bring it in, before you bring it in, I would recommend spraying with an insecticidal soap and also inspecting to see if there's any bumps on the stems. That would be scale, anything that looks like almost like a white powder. That could be almost like a white powdery fuzz. That could be mealybug. We want to inspect it for any insects so we're not bringing insects indoors. An insecticidal soap that I like is Bug Be Gone. It's one that I use all the time. We got another question this evening from Diane Trotter. Hi, Frankie. Can mulch leaves and leave them on the lawn? Great question, Diane. As the leaves fall, yeah, our work gets a little bit more. We can go over the leaves several times with our lawnmower as long as we're seeing a significant amount of blades of grass through the mulched leaves. Totally fine to leave it there. And even after you leave it, if you put down a fall fertilizer, that nitrogen in the fall fertilizer will help them break down. However, if after you cut all the leaves and you mulch them a few times, you don't see any blades of grass, it's too dense on top and it will suffocate the lawn. So as long as you're seeing lots of blades of grass popping their way through after you cut the lawn, you're completely fine. Is the event a public event? Yes, indeed, Matthew. I will look really quickly here. Just going to go over here just to make sure. I'm forgetting the name because I'm getting old. Does anybody else out there get old brain? Guelph, Paw. Partners with Paws. So I am doing on Saturday. We are doing Partners with Paws. And that is blah, 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 blah. I'm talking about plants. And it is at a winery. So just look up The Wine and Walk event is September the 28th from 1 to 3. I will be there right at 1 o'clock. This is in Guelph, Ontario. It's at Cox Creek Cellars. We will have a great time. So we're actually creating partnerships with psychiatric service dogs. So we're going there to raise funds for those dogs that actually help people out and help people feel a little better. And Matthew, I'd love to see you there. So I will be there on Saturday. Another question that we have here from Carolyn. Would I be able to transplant my Oriental lilies at this time of the year? Yes, no problem whatsoever. Oriental lilies, which are Asiatic lilies, a reminder, after you transplant them, just work the soil around the base because there's a chance that you could get the red lily beetle. Next spring, always keep an eye out for a red beetle on your Oriental lilies or your Asiatic lilies. If you see that red beetle, pick it and get them off and sink them and drown them in some soapy water. And then look to the backside of the leaves. If you see a little orange bump on the backside of the leaf, that is the little eggs of that red lily beetle. So just a good, just a little recommendation there as evening. As well, we got good evening this evening from Adrian. Good evening to you. We got Michelle, which is saying yes. Okay, we got that. Okay. We also have Jen Yee. Thoughts on applying the fall fertilizer twice in the fall? I put it down 2 weeks ago and just saw your Facebook post applying Thanksgiving weekend. Thanks from Ottawa. I don't think I would do a double application, even though you just did it a couple weeks ago. It's a slow release nitrogen. So it's a slow release fertilizer that will last up until 6 weeks. A double application might be just too much fertilizer, over fertilizing. If we're going through a drier fall period, my recommendation is just continue to water your lawn in the fall. That's the big thing. And I wouldn't do a second application. So you're good. I'm just going to tell you just to hold off there as well. Judy Miller says she can't hear the show this evening. Is anybody else finding the same thing? Anybody else out there finding the same thing? If not, maybe you just have mute on your computer there. Hello, good evening from Segal. We got Hebia, which is saying, great, thanks. This will help me. That's the whole thing too, guys, is on this, some of the questions that I don't get to, if you know the answers to some of those questions, please hop on, please answer them because we're a community here to help others. And for anybody out there, if you're wondering what do we do to get your answers, to get your questions answered, just pop them in your comments. If you're watching me on Facebook, on YouTube this evening, maybe you're watching me on LinkedIn, you just pop it in the comment and I'll pop that up there. Carol King, she's saying hello from Hamilton, still picking beans and tomatoes. Me too. My tomatoes actually all pretty much except one plant suffered from a late blight, turned yellow, but I still have so much fruit that's on them. So I'm going to do coming up in the next couple of weeks, too many tomato sauce, just how to get the tomatoes out there. So I got a confirmation from Kathy saying that she can hear the show fine this evening. Thank you so much. We got Linda saying good evening this evening from Seabright, Ontario. Seabright is a beautiful little area just north of Lake Simcoe. I do know that as well. I think you're right over by Kidmount, if I'm not mistaken. A couple other things just to kind of get you prepared as well. People at this time of the year get pretty excited about planting garlic. Just a reminder, garlic is best planted closer to when we're getting ground frost in. So that's going to be closer to near the end of October in Southern Ontario. So it's just another little quick tip for you as well. Carol King's doing another little thing here too, saying cherry tomatoes have yellow flowers still. Debbie says, I lost you when you rebooted. My question disappeared. Not sure if you saw it or not. Debbie, I didn't see it. So if you could re-ask it again, that would be super, super beneficial. Having a little technical problems this evening, maybe due to some of the active weather that we have in the area. We do have some thunderstorm activity. So that could be slowing down some of my responses. And maybe that's why my sound is coming in and out. So I apologize for that. I'm at the victim of those as well that are out there. Okay, so we just talked about garlic. So garlic, if you're looking for garlic and you're wondering what garlic grows best in Ontario, you're looking for hard neck varieties. Hard neck varieties tend to be cold hardy. If you see a soft necked, or let's say that you're thinking about buying garlic online, so seed garlic basically which is just really the garlic, but it's the cloves of garlic that have been prepared for you to plant. If you see soft neck garlic, I would pretty much avoid it. I feel that hard neck garlic varieties are the best for here in Ontario for you to grow as well. It is a fantastic time to be planting perennials. Maybe if you're thinking about doing some additions to your gardens by adding in some evergreens, even some flowering shrubs. This is the time of year where you're going to get some good discounts. The soil temperatures are fantastic. It's an amazing time of year to be out there and planting. When you're cleaning up your garden, if you have any diseased leaves or diseased plants and you're cutting back that foliage, those diseased leaves shouldn't go in the compost. They should be put for curbside pickup because we really want to reduce that. If you're whatever cutting tool you're using at that time, just wipe it with a little bleach so we're not spreading disease all over the place. This is also a time of year where as we get cooler nights, you're going to start to find that maybe some insects are making their way into your homes. If that's the case, and you have insects inside your home all when the weather gets cooler, that means you have cracks or crevices. So you may want somebody to come in and take a look at recocking or taking a look at your home to caulk the home, which also will help out with your heating bills, but can also solve your insect problems. It's also a time of year when mice and rats try to get inside your house. So you can put bait stations outside to kind of prevent or minimize that from happening. Steel wool is great if you have a crack that you just don't know how to cover, but you can use that as well. We got Brandy, who's given us a little comment this evening as well. Hello from Coburg. Great harvest this year. My freezer is full from winter. It was a great, we had so much rain this summer that it was almost like a tropical environment. So even if you were away for periods of time, this summer we had enough rain to really help us out as well. Carol King saying, see me at the home show this Sunday. I'm looking forward to seeing you as well. We got another great question here this evening, and this is Debbie's question. Wondering if it's okay to dig up some coneflowers now and transplant them, or should I wait until spring? I'm in Ajax, BTW, which is, by the way, awesome. Go ahead, do it. Dig up those coneflowers. You can. The other thing with coneflowers is some of the flowers that have finished, those seed heads that are there, and if they're nice and dried up, that's all perennial coneflower seeds. So when you're transplanting, you could actually take some of that seed and broadcast it over the area with the hope that some of it and many of it will germinate for next season. You're going to find that a lot with Rudbeckia, which is Black-Eyed Susan. Those flower heads on the top produce a lot of seed. And if you're wondering why Black-Eyed Susan seems to kind of take over areas, it's because of the seed heads that are there. So those are some good tips that are there as well. We got Lori who said, lost you during your reboot. What was your advice on geraniums for winter? So it's a great question. So there's lots of different methods that we can use for geraniums for overwintering. Some will actually take a geranium and actually shake all its soil off the roots and hang them in their basement and allow them to almost dry upside down. And you'd hang them more so in a cool area, cool, dark environment that still has some humidity. So really a fruit cellar is an ideal location for this. My recommendation though for geraniums for winter is not to do that, but to bring them indoors, put them in a south or west facing window, bright light. Ideally, it'd be in a room where we're a little bit cooler at night, but as well, the geraniums don't want them to be overwatered during the winter. So we allow them to dry. Geraniums are fairly easy to overwinter in this method. In spring, when we start to see some new flushes of growth, it's a fantastic time at that point to start taking cutting slips off them to generate more geraniums. You can use a stem root or a rooting hormone, which is a stem root number 1, to help you out with that. But that would be my overall recommendation where I've had best success. Some people will actually even take their geraniums, shake them all off and put them in paper bags and put them into their cold cellar and or Catita. And many people say they have great success with that as well. But I kind of just like having them kicking around. Carol King, again, looking to put my perennials in the gardens. They are in pots. Stunning sunset this evening. I would go ahead. Your perennials are going to do better in the garden versus in a pot over winter. If you leave perennials in containers over the winter, they freeze more solid. So you increase the chance of them not surviving dramatically, almost by about 70%. Tracy Reynolds is saying, Frankie, your schedule is messing me up. Great to see you, though. So Tracy, just let everybody know, I'm going to be doing this now on Wednesday evenings at 7 o'clock, the Garden Q&A. The reason why I've moved it to Wednesday evenings is we're coming up to ski season for my son. And my son typically is training on Saturdays and Sundays. Monday nights, I tend to be exhausted. And then generally Wednesdays are a night where I don't have events. So often many of the events where I do speaking at are either Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. So I'm hoping I can consistently be here midweek for you on Wednesdays at 7 o'clock. If this is awful and you don't think that's a good idea, let me know. But just to let you know, I do this. I don't get any compensation. The odd time I've had some compensation, but overall, this is just me hopping on there to help you. And it's actually the reason why I do it as well, is it keeps me really fresh and on it in terms of the information. Because if you don't use it, you lose it, and I learn. So I love to learn. So we got Debbie who's given a thank you out there as well. CJ Farnell, which is saying, just wanted to say hi and welcome back. We got a question about what about clematis or clematis? So clematis is late summer flowering. So what I would do with your clematis in the fall is any of those vines that have kind of extended themselves out after they're finished their bloom period. So after a few frosts, I would just cut them back so it'd be tight to the trellis. Then in the spring, I would allow it to all almost bud out. And wherever I saw any deadwood, I would just cut it off. That's the easiest method to do. Clematis will come back overall. In the late summer flowering varieties, you could prune them pretty aggressively if you wanted to. Species clematis, which is a smaller blooming clematis which blooms in spring, that's the variety that should only be pruned after blooming. And that clematis needs to be pruned. That's going to be midsummer is when you would be pruning species clematis. A reminder, clematis like an alkaline soil. So if it didn't perform well this year, maybe you have too high of an acidity. They also like to have a sunny top, meaning that they like full sun, but they like their roots cool. So planting a plant in front of them to shade the roots is really beneficial as well. Jen Gee is saying, we really appreciate everything you do for us and you do your lives when it is best for you and your family. Thank you so much. That's what I'm trying to do, guys. We got Tracy Barber saying, looking forward to Wednesdays. Yeah, Wednesdays are wild and wacky, but let's make Wednesdays a little bit more fun for you as well. Jen Gee says, I agree. We got Wendy. Oh, I'm going to pop back over to Wendy there. Wendy has a question this evening as well. My hydrangeas were very high and leggy this year. How can I get them more compact for next season? Annabella, thank you. So I would give them a fairly aggressive pruning. So this fall, once we get a few frosts, I would prune them so they're only 18 to 24 inches above the ground. Really key. The other reason why they may be leggy, are they stretching for light? Meaning that did we have any shade trees like big maples or oaks that now have grown a little larger and are starting to shade them out? If that's the case, they may be stretching for the light. That may mean that you need to get somebody in to do some overhead pruning. But those are two recommendations to help you out there. We got Rosalind, which is saying, I did not get many tomatoes this year. Not sure what happened. I'm in Oshawa. So this season, you should have had a fairly good tomato season because we did have adequate sunlight, moisture, and heat units. It was hot. We had a lot of heat units, and tomatoes really love heat units. Tomatoes need sun. So if they're not in full sun, your tomatoes not planted in full sun, they're not going to perform well. If by chance they don't have a lot of pollinators, being bees around to help pollinate those flowers, that's another reason why you may not have had many tomatoes. Some tomatoes this year took some time to get on. And the reason why they took some time to flower and start to produce was because we had such a hot spring, and with it we had really warm conditions late spring, early summer through the overnight period. We did see some heat delay. So what happens with heat delay when it's too hot, and this happens in many hot climates as well, is the tomatoes themselves will not put on fruit because they don't want to stress themselves too much. So they're already stressed by the heat. So they delay themselves so they don't have any heat. So that's some of the reasons. A reminder, wherever you had a tomato planted this year, if by chance it didn't produce good tomatoes this year, or if it yellowed and got a late blight or an early blight, next season, it is super, super duper important that we don't plant tomatoes in the same spot. We got to make sure that we do crop rotations. We got another recommendation and really an approval, that is. Wednesday are awesome for me. Thank you very much. Thank you very much as well. We got another Wendy asking another question, and this is Wendy English this evening. My sedums have fell outwards and all over the ground. What can I do next year to prevent this? So that would be sedum autumn joy. Some varieties, actually, once they get to be fairly established, and if they haven't been divided for the last 3 to 5 years, if they've just been left alone. In the spring, when they start to pop out of the ground, you start to just see them. I would lift those up, or even just take a section out and start doing some divisions. The divisions will help them be a little bit more compact. The other thing that you can do too is you could put a tomato cage, a smaller tomato cage, and just stuff it down. And when they start to grow, and we're going to do this in the spring, so we stuff it down right around that plant in the early spring. And then when that sedum grows up, that tomato cage actually holds it in place. Often people will do something similar with this with some of their hydrangeas as well out there. We got Sally, which is asking a question. Frank, can I cut back my Russian sage? Blue Jean, I think Russian sage is a beautiful drought-tolerant plant with a silver foliage and that beautiful bluish type flower. Yes, indeed, you can cut it back. Go ahead and cut it back. I think Russian sage is a plant that is somewhat underused. It's a great middle to background plant, not for the front of the bed, middle of the bed to the back of the bed, in full sun. Just an amazing, amazing color show there as well. So we got Jackie Thompson. I have 13 palm trees and 6 ferns here at my summer home in Wasaga. I would like to take them home when my season ends. Will they survive, and what can I do to help them? So the palm trees, easier, but there is some challenge. So first thing is palm trees, depending upon the variety, often will get spider mite, red spider mite indoors. So before bringing indoors, spray them all with insecticidal soap. Once again, like I recommended earlier, was Bug B Gon is the one that I will use. I would spray them all just before placing them indoors. If they are going indoors, they need to go into your brightest area of your home. And once again, that's either south or west facing window. They don't need to directly go into the light, meaning directly in front of the window. They just need to be in a bright room. Allowing them to dry in between waterings, also super important. And during the winter season, continue to inspect to see if they have any webbing on them, because that could, or you'll even see these little red bugs. That's your red spider mite, and you may need to do a couple other applications of insecticidal soap. Humidity is also good for palms indoors. That will help. So adding a humidifier to the room. Ferns tend to be a little bit more difficult to overwinter because they do like high humidity levels, and really they do like more of a cooler night. So they like to be in a bright room that is really coolish, so they don't need to be warm. So they like to be, I would say, in temperatures of about 15 degrees Celsius is what they like. But your ferns are more difficult for you to overwinter. Humidity is super key with a fern. So missing those guys very often is very key. So I hope some of those tips answered some of your questions. That's a lot of plants. 13 palms is going to take a lot of space that's out there as well. We got another question here, and I'll read it over on this side just because it's a little bit longer. Looking for some guidance. I grow morning glories, various varieties. Morning glories, the reason why they're called morning glories, they flower in the morning. Every year with crazy great results at my home. My parents now in their new home love them. They have a bunch of black walnut trees where their gardens are, and I had hoped to train some more growers here this spring for this year to grow up the tree trunks, hoping juggling from the tree roots aren't an issue. So I'm just going to look up this really quickly. I think they are, though. Morning glory jug alone. Are they jug alone tolerant? I'm just going to see. Oh, yeah, actually, you know what, guys? They're somewhat tolerant. I just need to check this as well. Most tolerant plants to jug alone are black raspberries, currants, honey locusts, quince, staghorn sumac. What are marginally resistant are indeed your morning glories, including things like bugleweed, bellflowers, bee balm. Those guys there will do decently well. So you're okay on that thing. For those people that are watching right now and saying, what the hell is Frank talking about? What the hell is Juggalo? So black walnut trees are fairly smart. What makes them smart is they actually put Juggalo into the soil around their root systems. The reason why this tree is smart, well, not smart, it's basically trying to do survival of the fittest, is it puts Juggalo into the soil around its root zone so other plants won't compete for its nutrients or moisture. So that won't allow plants to grow underneath it. And that's why you're asking for that question there as well. So Sean, I hope that helped you out there as well. Great question, by the way, as well. So that kind of added a whole bunch of different information for people out there. And this is going to be our last question of the evening, because I promise I'd stay with you for 30 minutes, and we're coming up on that right now. David, I'm preparing to remove my candy lilies. Which the best method is to bring them in for the winter? Also, can I move my peony now? You can move your peony now. Just when you go to move it, make sure you don't plant it too deep. So when planting, plant it a little bit above soil level and just mound soil up to it. Because if it's planted where the crown is below the soil level, it won't bloom. Canna lilies, I would wait for actually a few frosts. So wait for a few frosts for some of that top foliage to die back. After that happens, you're just going to remove them, and you're going to basically try to shake as much soil off as possible. Try to do this on a dry day, and then just put them either on your back patio or your back, even your furniture, your patio table. And you're just going to allow that soil to dry off of that root. And then after a day or so, you're just going to go out there with a brush, and you would just take like a paintbrush, and you're going to try to get as much dirt off that root as possible. Then you're going to cut off all the foliage right back to the tuber. So that's the tuber that we're storing. We're going to store that tuber, if you have in your home, a fruit cellar or cantina, or just really an area in your home that's cooler and dark. We want to store them in a box, either in shredded newspaper, or we want to even use dry sawdust as something that can work as well. And when we're putting the tubers in, we want to separate them so they're not touching each other, so a little bit of a space. And the reason why we're using dried sawdust and or the newspaper is that will draw some additional moisture away from them so they won't rot. Through the winter months, you're just going to go check them on occasion to see if any of them have developed some rot or starting to rot. And any of those ones that do, you can either cut the rot off, or what you can do is just discard that tuber. But that's the best method that's there. So, hey guys, I thank you for joining me this evening. I'm sorry about some of the reboot that I had to do at the beginning, but I hoped you maybe gained a little bit of insight, maybe a little inspiration. Maybe you smiled, maybe you laughed, maybe you cried, maybe you thought, who the hell is this guy? But I come here each and every week to try to help you out. Once again, I'll be back here next Wednesday night at 7 p.m. I'll see you.